From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In Brazil, the country's public prosecutor's office opened an investigation against Health Minister Eduardo Pozuelo for the management of the pandemic crisis in the state of Amazonas. The public prosecutor's office granted the Brazilian official a period of 15 days to deliver all documents and information concerning the compliance with established measures. The latest epidemiological report shows that since the beginning of the pandemic, the region registers nearly 230,000 COVID-19 cases and over 6,100 fatalities. The state of Amazonas experiences a collapse of its health system due to the lack of oxygen in Manaus hospitals, while there is a record increase in admissions due to infections. At the same time, in Sao Paulo, the vaccination campaign against COVID-19 continues.
O Brasil já tem disponíveis cerca de 60 milhões de seringas e agulhas.
In Colombia, violence continues as a new massacre was confirmed on Sunday night in Cauca department. Local authorities reported that armed men entered a sports complex and shot 3 young men in the neighborhood of El Recuerdo in the city of Popayán, capital of Cauca department. The incident is the And this year's first migrant caravan, consisting mostly of Honduran citizens, seeks to advance through Guatemalan territory towards the United States. According to a report by Guatemalan authorities, the largest group of mobilized Hondurans still stranded on the country's eastern highway, where security forces have blocked the caravan's path. Following this situation, the Honduran National Biometric Migration Control System registered more than 400 returning Hondurans. Nevertheless, Honduran migrants persist in the initiative to continue their journey to the United States with the objective of overcoming the structural crisis increased by the government's neglects of climate phenomena, economic crisis, and the pandemic. The second part of Ecuador's presidential debate took place on Sunday night in the city of Guayaquil. 16 presidential candidates attended the mandatory debate organized by the National Electoral Council. Sunday's debate focused on various topics such as economic, employment, corruption, international relations, and human rights. Regarding corruption, Union for Hope, UNA's candidate Andrés Araúz, condemned the current government's mishandling of funds during the COVID-19 pandemic and the advance payment of foreign debt servicing other basic cares for Ecuadorians. He also mentioned that this administration will prioritize financial help for families and giving $1,000 to 1 million Ecuadorians in the first week of his government. General elections are set to take place on February the 7th. And the candidates also addressed upon other issues, including regional integration and human rights. Andrés Araúz said that his government's regional integration will be a priority.
First of all, I would need at least 5 minutes to answer all of the candidates' concerns regarding the government of Rafael Correa. Ecuadorians, this government has stolen many things from us, with the representatives present, but we will answer all of these offenses on social media, because here they only give us a minute to answer. Mr. Velasco, if you have any question regarding any contracts, file a lawsuit. And Mr. Perez, please, don't be ridiculous. Don't talk about laws that you know nothing about. Public finances is my specialty. Corruption is what happened at the hospitals during the pandemic. The advance payment of foreign debt for $2 billion when Ecuadorians were dying on the streets. Our policy will be one of building.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate for Avanza, Isidro Romero, said that if he were to be elected, he will have no problem in implementing life sentence in the country.
Corruption is attacked when we make all those scoundrels and thieves go to jail. We won't allow them to steal. We will do what needs to be done, including implementing life sentence and the total seizure of the thief assets. Who's going to rob me in my government knowing that they could remain in jail forever? Also, the inmates in my government we were feeling rot farming because that is the only way we will move forward.
And the candidate for Alianza País, Ximena Peña, said that all high-level positions should be occupied by well-known professionals in order to prevent corruption.
It's essential that all high-level positions be occupied by professionals that have a career. It's important that all high-level officials continue to study and prepare themselves. This will prevent public institutions from becoming a goldmine for some.
On Sunday, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, announced the inauguration of the headquarters of the Ozone Scientific Center, which joins the fight against COVID-19 in the country. The president said that the signing of the decree for the creation of the National Scientific Center was carried out last September after conducting research with the Ministry of Science of the benefits that ozone can provide as a complementary therapy to treat patients with COVID-19. President Maduro said that ozone therapies will gradually be applied in all health centers in the country. And we'll go now to a short break. Follow us on Twitter at teleSUR English and Gladys teleSUR.
Who's moving the chess man? What interests motivate the actors behind each event? What's at stake? Critical Move investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on teleSUR. Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomy. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hua Chunying said Monday China will sanction certain officials of the United States for their egregious behaviors on affairs related to the country's Taiwan region.
In light of the wrongdoings of the U.S., China has decided to impose sanctions on the U.S. official in charge who have behaved badly on the Taiwan issue. The U.S. must immediately stop meddling in Hong Kong affairs, immediately stop interfering in China's internal affairs under various pretexts, and endangering China's national security, and not go further and further down the wrong and dangerous path. The so-called fact sheet is just another list of lies concocted by the U.S. side, fully reflecting the attitude of U.S. politicians concerned, who put public safety aside for their own selfish interests, disregard life, defy science, indulge in promoting conspiracy theories, and nearly spread political viruses.
U.S. defense officials say they are worried about an insider attack or another threat from service members involved in securing President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. The threat is prompting the FBI to vet all of the 25,000 National Guard troops coming into Washington for the event. The massive undertaking reflects the extraordinary security concerns that have gripped the Capitol following the deadly January 6 riots at the U.S. Capitol by Trump's followers. The action also underscores fears that some of the very people assigned to protect the city over the next several days could present a threat to the incoming president and other VIPs in the attendance. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy said Sunday officials are conscious of the potential threat and warned commanders to be on the lookout for any problems within their ranks as the inauguration approaches. And the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Monday that Russia has no proof of opposition leader Alexei Navalny's poison from Western countries, except for Navalny's testimonies.
Navalny says, Russian Federation and personally, President Vladimir Putin poisoned me. And this is perceived by the West without any rejection. But we have facts, and only in the form of all that Navalny testifies at interrogation of German law enforcement structures.
Italy's Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte deplores the opening of a political crisis in the midst of the pandemic, while Italians have to face the fear of disease, the social malaise, and fear for the future.
All our energies should be focused on the country's crisis, while in the eyes of the citizens they seem to be dissipated by polemics, often sterile, totally incomprehensible to those who have to face the fear of disease every day, the specter of impoverishment, social malaise, the anguish of the future.
Due to COVID-19, a record-breaking 246,880 voters have cast early ballots on Sunday, a week before the presidential elections on January 24th. The presidential election is taking place without delay despite a national lockdown and national travel restrictions are being lifted on both voting day and on early voting day. Voting polls this year have been extended to avoid large concentrations of people with spiraling COVID-19 infections following the Christmas holidays. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Sunday that the government plans to build hundreds of new settled homes in the occupied West Bank. Netanyahu ordered the plans advanced and a government committee gave final ratification for 365 homes and preliminary approval for another 515. The European Union said Israel's latest decision to advance the plans is contrary to international law and further undermines the prospects of a viable two-state solution. President Donald Trump has effectively backed Israel's rights to build West Bank settlements by abandoning a long-held U.S. position that they break international law. And experts believe there are more cultural relics to be unearthed after a new trove of treasures was discovered at Egypt's Saqqara necropolis near the pyramids of Giza. An Egyptian archaeological mission working on Saqqara announced on Sunday the discovery of the funerary temple of ancient Egyptian Queen Nefertiti, wife and daughter of King Teti, the first pharaoh of the 6th dynasty that ruled Egypt over 4,300 years ago. The finding introduces the name Queen Nefertiti for the first time in an ancient Egyptian history, as King Teti was known before the discovery to have had only two wives, Iput the first and Kuit the second. The Saqqara archaeological site, a vast necropolis of the ancient Egyptian capital of Memphis, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is located about 30 kilometers southwestward of Egypt's capital city, Cairo.
Over 5,000 years ago, the capital city of ancient Egypt is Memphis, where a large area of cemetery lies westward, and the most important part area of the cemetery was Saqqara, where many royal family members, important officials and clergy were buried from the early dynasty period through the entire historical period of ancient Egypt, which included the Hellenistic and the Roman period. The craftsmen responsible for construction here in the ancient times needed to eat and drink, didn't they? They used plates to have meals and small cups to drink water, and when the construction project concluded, some of the gadgets as well as construction tools they used would be left behind, which would guide the digging like marks, because finding these marks usually indicates an existence of relics nearby.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said Monday the world is on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure if rich countries hoard COVID-19 vaccine doses while the poorest suffer.
The first vaccines began to be deployed, the promise of equitable access is at serious risk. More than 39 million doses of vaccine have now been administered in at least 49 higher income countries. Just 25 doses have been given in one lowest income country. Not 25 million, not 25,000, just 25. I need to be blunt. The world is on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure. And the price of this failure will be paid with lives and livelihoods in the world's poorest countries. Not only does this me-first approach leave the world's poorest and most vulnerable people at risk, it's also self-defeating. Ultimately, these actions will only prolong the pandemic, prolong our pain. The restrictions needed to contain it, and human and economic suffering.
In the United States, at least 55 people have died after receiving the COVID-19 vaccines produced by Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech pharmaceutical companies. According to data from the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, a number of patients died a few days after receiving these vaccines. Most of the deceased were identified as people at risk because they were over 66-year-old. In addition to the death, authorities reported nearly 96 life-threatening events following vaccination, as well as 225 admissions and nearly 1,400 visits to the ER. U.S. health authorities stated that the vaccine's side effects are being investigated, while insisting that despite these incidents, they continue to consider the vaccines to be safe. And Belgium begins vaccinating health workers in hospitals against COVID-19. Liege Regional Hospitals aims to vaccinate 200 health workers per day until all 3,500 health workers have been inoculated.
We have started our first day of vaccination. We will vaccinate an average of 200 people each day, and we start with the services most exposed to COVID, which are ICU, emergency, and COVID hospitalization rooms. The vaccination reassures me because it was a product we hoped for a long time. It is something that will allow us to work in a safe manner, and it will also eradicate this pandemic we are fighting against for almost a year now.
Germany's health minister said the country will step up its monitoring of coronavirus variants amid concern that some mutant version could spread faster or cause more serious illnesses.
We have decided to massively promote the analysis of coronaviruses and to make the data analysis from such analysis mandatory to a central body, the Robert Koch Institute. As a general rule, at least 5% of all positive tests should be genome sequenced. The analysis of the coronavirus thus becomes an integral part of pandemic surveillance. These days, I keep reading that everyone is talking about the British or English virus. I think we didn't talk about the Chinese virus in the spring for good reasons. When presidents around the world talked about the foreign virus, we very consciously didn't go along with that. I think we should just talk about viruses that may have been discovered in the UK or in South Africa or now in Brazil. but this virus has no nationality, and neither do the mutations.
And Pakistan has started reopening schools in phases after about 2 months of closure, despite a steady increase in infections and fatalities from the coronavirus. Authorities said in the first phase, classes for senior grade students will reopen, while junior class will be reopened from February the 1st. Students also said they wanted to remain in school to study for upcoming examinations. Pakistan has reported 10,997 fatalities from the coronavirus, among 521,211 cases since February, when the first case was detected in the country. Pakistan's Drug Regulatory Authority has approved the use of Oxford AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine, and the government is trying to make it available for the first quarter of the year.
We appeal to the government that they must reopen all education institutes so that we can continue education properly, because due to the pandemic we have already lost education. The students are coming here with blank minds. I think that the students did not get any learning through online courses. We are following all the standard operating procedures for the safety of children.
And Malaysia unveiled a new $3.7 billion stimulus to bolster consumption, with the economy expected to reel from a second lockdown and emergency declaration. The state of emergency, expected to last until August the 1st, does not involve any curfew of military intervention, but suspends parliament, halts any elections, and gives the government to introduce new laws. At the same time, millions in Kuala Lumpur and several high-risk states were placed under a 2-week lockdown to halt a surge in coronavirus cases. Prime Minister Muhyiddin on Monday acknowledged concerns over the emergency, but reiterated it was solely aimed at curbing the coronavirus spread. To this date, Malaysia registers more than 161,000 coronavirus cases and 605 fatalities.
I'm happy to announce to you today another economic stimulus package for Malaysians. It will be called PERMAI or PERMAI and will be worth 15 billion ringgit. I would like to reiterate that this emergency declaration's sole purpose is to fight the spread of COVID-19, which is now the main threat to our national social-economic development.
The Cuban film director Juan Tabillo died in the early hours of Monday, 18th of January in Havana. The iconic and beloved director will be remembered by landmark movies like Se Permuta and as co-director of the Oscar-nominated film Strawberry and Chocolate. Winner of the National Film Award in 2014, the prestigious filmmaker is also thanked for the film Plaf, an undeniable success in genre that he defends, as well as for co-directing Guantanamera in 1995 with Tomás Gutiérrez Alea. Waiting List, produced in 2000, and The Horn of Plenty are among these most recent titles. Juan Carlos Tabillo has an important legacy in Cuban and Latin American cinematography.
Y profesional, muy antigua, muy fuerte. Siempre, tanto las películas de él como las películas.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. We say goodbye to these broadcasts with scenes from Strawberry and Chocolate and one of the most emblematic films of Cuban cinema, as a tribute to Juan Carlos Tabillo and his work. And remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. From TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.
Presentamos un clásico del cine cubano, una película que hizo historia, Fresa y Chocolate, nominada al premio Oscar.
Estamos preparando una exposición que va a ser un acontecimiento. Ya la tengo media resuelta con un amigo en una embajada.
Tienes que averiguar más. ¿Averiguar qué? ¿Todo? Lo de la embajada, lo de la exposición. Tienes que inventar algún pretexto y volver a su casa. ¿A su casa? Si ese tipo no me... ¿Cómo, chico? Esto es muy importante, David. Oye, esto es una misión.
Siéntate, voy a poner agua para el té. Enseguida estoy aquí.
Ay, perdón. Yo pensé que Dieguito estaba solo.
No.
Como vi la puerta abierta. Me parece que ese muchacho no debería venir tanto. Acuérdate que es militante y todo eso.
Estás muy interesada en que lo voten.
¿Y yo? ¿Por qué?
Para recogerlo. ¿Crees que no me he dado cuenta de cómo lo miras?
Sí, pero tú no eres revolucionario.
¿Quién te dijo a ti que yo no soy revolucionario? Formo parte de este país, aunque no le guste.
Tú eres Diego, ¿no?
Sí. Además, para que te enteres, David es 40 veces más hombre que tú.
Pero mira cómo defiende a su maridito, chico.
Maricón de no.
Fresa y chocolate.